All right, let's dive into Think Straight by Darius Foroux. The book has this really powerful idea. What if the key to changing your life wasn't something out there in the world, but something right here, inside your own head? It's all about learning how to master your thoughts. So let me just ask you, do you ever get that feeling that your mind is just, well, a tangled mess? You know, that constant hum of worries, random ideas, and things you have to do, all pulling you in a million different directions? It feels like you're trying to untangle a giant ball of string in your skull, and honestly, it's exhausting. Well, according to Foroux, this is pretty much what that mental chaos looks like. And the crazy thing is, it's the default setting for most of us. We're walking around with the most powerful tool in the known universe, our brain, but nobody ever really taught us how to use it properly. So instead of a tool, a lot of the time it just feels like a source of constant, unproductive noise. So let's zoom in on that chaos for a second. What is all that noise in our heads actually made of? Foroux makes this pretty bold claim that something like 99% of what we call thinking isn't really thinking at all. It's just worrying, it's stressing. We're not solving problems, we're not figuring things out, we're just spinning our wheels in this loop of preoccupation. It feels like we're doing something important, but really, these thoughts are totally useless. And you know the kinds of thoughts I'm talking about, right? Those greatest hits that get stuck on repeat. What if I fail? What if I lose my job? Or that classic, people are going to think I'm a total loser. None of these thoughts actually lead to a solution. They just fuel anxiety and keep us tangled up. But what if there's a way out of that loop? To find that way out, we're actually going to look at the story of someone who was trapped in the deepest, darkest version of this mental chaos and found a way to break through. So, picture this. It's the late 1860s, and a young doctor named William James, who would go on to become one of the greatest psychologists ever, is at absolute rock bottom. He's so depressed he's thinking about suicide, and he feels completely powerless, like his depression is just a biological fact he's stuck with for life. And then, this is the moment everything changed. He read an essay by a French philosopher, and he wrote this down in his journal. He had this massive realization, okay, he couldn't control the random depressing thoughts that just popped into his head, but, and this is the key part, he could choose which thoughts to focus on. He decided his very first act of free will would be to simply believe in free will. That was his escape hatch. And this idea, this ability to choose what we focus on, that's the whole secret sauce. It's what lets us go from that internal mess to a state of real clarity. And this right here is the big metaphor for the whole book. Take a look. The goal isn't to somehow stop having thoughts. That's impossible. The goal is to take that chaotic jumble on the left and consciously choose one single purposeful line of thought to follow, to straighten it out into that clear line you see on the right. It's all about directing your mental energy. Let's break that down a bit more. The state of chaos, that's defined by worry, stress, and confusion, which all leads to suffering. But clarity, that's defined by purpose. It's about being solution-oriented. It's about focus. And it all boils down to one super important word: usefulness. Okay, so that's the big idea. But you're probably wondering, how do we actually do this? How do we put it into practice? Well, let's look at the toolkit Foroux gives us for straightening out our thinking. First tool is a major mindset shift. We all imagine our goals are at the end of this nice, straight path. But reality? Reality is always a winding, messy road. Once we accept that life isn't a straight line, we stop freaking out at the first roadblock. We realize setbacks are normal, and we start looking for other routes instead of just giving up. This second tool is all about creating a filter. Just think about the flood of information, opinions, and thoughts that hits you every single day. It's completely overwhelming. There's no way you can process it all. So you need a system. You need a way to decide what gets in and what gets ignored. You need a mental filter. And that filter actually has a name: pragmatism. It's a philosophy that William James himself helped create. And the core idea is so simple. The truth is what works. It means you only focus on beliefs and ideas that have useful, practical consequences that help you get things done in the real world. And this brings us to the one simple question that becomes your filter. Anytime you find yourself stuck in a mental loop, just ask yourself this: is this thought useful? Is worrying about something you literally cannot control useful? Nope. Is beating yourself up over a mistake you made last year useful? Definitely not. If a thought doesn't serve a practical purpose, it's not worth your time. Let it go. And all of this leads us to the final, and maybe the most important takeaway from the book.
The thoughts we choose to hang on to, they're not just little things. They are everything.
This quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a huge inspiration for William James, just nails it. You become what you think about all day long. The thoughts you keep coming back to, the ones you give your energy to, they're not just passing thoughts. They are literally the building blocks of who you are, what you believe, and the reality you experience. Because at the end of the day, your actions always follow your thoughts. You can't change your life, you can't change your results without first changing the thinking that's driving everything. The chain of command is crystal clear. Change your mind first, and your life will follow. So I'll leave you with this final question, because this isn't just about theory, right? It's about making a real change. So think about it for a second. What's one useless, repetitive thought you've been carrying around that you can decide to replace starting right now?